and I'll be one of co-hosts and moderators today. Before we start, I want to tell a couple of things. First, we are recording this webinar and will publish it in our YouTube channel. I will also publish the video in our blog. Second, if you do not have good speakers, you can call at the phone number provided to you upon joining this webinar for the better connection. And the third, the webinar is scheduled for 1 hour and there will be a questions and answers session after we finish our presentation. So please send your questions to alliance@x-card.com email address during the presentation. Now let me please introduce the presenters today. This is me, Ksenia Emelyanova, Marketing Manager for Xcard. I've been in Xcard team since 2009. I started as a customer relations representative, after that managed to get the position of a project manager and handled almost all sorts of tasks, from custom development and upgrades to security and optimization. Later I started to write text for Xcard blog and now I'm responsible for marketing. Now let me please introduce our main speaker today. It's Clete Werts from Avalara. Clete manages over 10 strategic partners for Avalara, not only from e-commerce but also from recurring billing, enterprise resource planning, and multi-level marketing space. Clete has more than 14 years of experience in the technology industry. He lives in Portland, Oregon, with his wife and 4 children. Clete is the Bachelor of Science in Organizational Communication, and he earned his degree at the University of Utah. Now please meet Clete and his presentation. Clete, are you here?
I am. Thank you. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to attend the webinar. Well, what I wanted to do is just kind of give you an overview of how Avalara and Xcard can help your company manage sales. And heard over the last month or so, sales tax is changing. And there's a lot of things that companies need to be aware of in how they need to manage sales tax within their organization and where they need to calculate and remit sales tax. So what I want to do is just kind of go over and walk you through some of the things that you need to be aware of from an e-commerce perspective or even from a company perspective on how you need to manage sales tax. So what I want to do is just kind of walk through the challenges that the companies are facing today, and then kind of go over some of the technology that's available to you. So let me just, there we go. So one of the things that from a sales tax perspective, the reason I like this slide is just for the fact that it kind of articulates a number of things that's the pressure that's putting on companies today. The federal legislation, and I'm going to point this out later in the presentation, but the Market Street Fairness Act that just passed the U.S. Senate, it could be a game changer from a company perspective. Instead of having companies only need to collect sales tax in a specific state that they're in, it would require them to potentially collect and file sales tax in every state. So if you look at companies and the changing nexus requirements, as I said over here on the left, to having to file and return, and remit these sales tax to any product taxability requirements that they have. So if you're selling clothing and apparel or nutritional supplements, states treat those products differently, whether they're exempt or there's a variable sales tax within the state that they need to be aware of. So if anybody's aware of what's going on in the U.S., they also understand that the states are starving for money. And so they are hiring auditors and increasing that activity to ensure that companies are adhering to the laws and the regulations of that state. So one of the things that, as I mentioned just previously, is in regards to the Amazon laws and the federal legislation that is going on here in the United States, and that is essentially what Nexus is where a company needs to charge sales tax. That's how it's defined, and the states are trying to expand that definition to require them to have to calculate, collect, and file sales tax in more states. And so the Marketplace Fairness Act is this legislation that is helping expand the footprint for the e-commerce company. And so what it will do is require companies to potentially collect and file sales tax in every single state if it's over a certain dollar threshold in sales. And so for a lot of e-commerce companies, that it could change their requirements in how they manage and remit sales tax for their company. So these are just some of the things that companies need to be aware of, and the potential changes and impact in their sales tax process that they need to be aware of. Now, one of the questions that I get is where do I have to charge sales tax? And this question around nexus. And nexus, as I defined here in the slide, is it's a tangible physical presence, and that's how it's defined today. And basically what that means is where you have, and I listed a number of them, agents, distributors, offices, employees, and each state, to make it even more complex, each state defines nexus differently. And so companies need to be aware of these varying triggering events that would require them to register their company in the state and then also start filing and remitting that sales tax. And just one quick example, I had a company a year ago call me up. They were in the state of Washington, and they did a couple of trade shows in the state of Arizona, and they sold over a specific dollar amount in that state through those trade shows. And the state of Arizona contacted them and said, you now have nexus, you now have to file and start collecting sales tax for sales that you do in the state of Arizona. Now, they didn't have any offices or employees, warehouses, anything physically in that state, but because they did those trade shows and sold over a certain dollar amount, it required them to now start collecting and filing sales tax in their state. So there are real life examples where companies are doing certain activities that then triggers this nexus, which requires them to start collecting and filing sales tax. The other thing that companies need to be aware of is not only where they need to collect sales tax, but how does that state determine what the sales tax rate is. So for example, there are a number of states that are origin-based states, meaning that you need to calculate the sales tax based on where the product is going to be shipped from. And then you have a couple of states that even make it more difficult, where you have to take into account both where the product is being shipped from and where the product is being shipped to, and calculate the sales tax based on both of those origin and destination locations. And then most of the states, as just by elimination, you can see are destination-based states. So wherever you ship the product, that's where you have to determine where the sales tax is. And so there are, obviously you can see there are varying rules depending on what that state is and where you have to charge sales tax that you need to be aware of. Now, one of the other things that the states do, or that we do in regards to sales tax, is we treat different products differently. And what I mean by that is typically there's two buckets from a sales tax from a product perspective. There's one bucket that is considered tangible personal property. And that essentially means that wherever you sell your product, regardless of what state it's sold in, that product is fully taxable, which means you're going to charge the state, the county, the city, and any special jurisdiction taxes that apply. So that's pretty straightforward, right? You're just going to charge sales tax on whatever it is. But then you have a class of products that have varying taxability rules, and I've listed a number of them. And the ones that I deal with the most are, SaaS products, food, clothing and apparel, dietary supplements, where in one state, let's say in the state of California, it could be taxable. In Arizona, it could be exempt, so you don't have to charge sales tax. Or like in Texas, for a SaaS product, the tax is it's taxed at 80% of what the sales tax rate is. So companies need to be aware of not only where they need to collect sales tax and how that sales tax is calculated, but also the type of products that they're selling to ensure that the correct product tax is applied also. And implementing a process or a solution to do that just ensures compliance for your organization when remitting and filing that sales tax. Now, one of the things that is critical in not only the sales tax, calculating the sales tax, is how that sales tax is applied. And I just brought up an example here in the state of Colorado, and how in applying sales tax rates, there really is no rhyme or reason to how states draw the boundaries on how sales tax rates are applied. And as you can see, is the darker color articulates a higher sales tax rate than the lighter color. And as you'll see, is there are just pockets of sales tax rates that how they came up with those boundaries, I have no idea. But and this is consistent throughout the country. And so it just shows that having a very accurate sales tax process is critical. And through Avalara and Xcart, you have a solution, a process that calculates the sales tax at the rooftop level. And what I mean by that is we do not use zip codes to determine sales tax. We actually use latitude and longitude to locate the rooftop address of that ship-to location. And what that does is that allows us to pinpoint that specific location, that rooftop location, to calculate the correct sales tax. And the reason that is important is how it's articulated in this slide is the sales tax rates and the boundaries are all over the place. It's not consistent. So having a rooftop level accurate sales tax process is critical in ensuring that the customer is getting the correct sales tax, but also from a company perspective that your company is compliant. So let me walk you through the technology today that's available that helps automate and ensure compliance in managing sales tax. And with Avalara, you have a solution that is able to provide you the highest security, as I mentioned, in regards to the technology, in regard to using geolocation or latitude and longitude to calculate the sales tax, but our response time in milliseconds to be able to, for your customers who want to purchase your product or services that goes to your website, that we're able to validate the address, calculate the sales tax, and return that to your customer sub-second. So in reality, your customer never knows when they come into Xcart, your website, never know Avalara exists. All they know is within milliseconds they receive a sales tax calculation along with what their product cost is for them to purchase your product or service. And then our ability to scale. So we work with a number of very small companies who are just starting out to very large companies who are the largest company that I'm aware of that Avalara has is they do about 15 million transactions a month. And so our ability to scale, as you can see, our ability to process 172 million transactions a day gives organizations the ability and the comfort level to know that I'm starting small today, but as my needs grow, as my requirements change, that I'm implementing a solution that is able to scale with the future growth of my company. One of the advantages of the Avalara and Xcart relationship is the pre-built integration that we worked on to deliver to the Xcart community. And the ability with this Xcart connector to plug in to Xcart to deliver this solution within days. So instead of having to do any custom development or coding to integrate your website to Avalara, it is a pre-built plug-and-play solution. So you don't have any hardware or software requirements. There are no maintenance support. Everything is done in the cloud. And so with this pre-built integration, essentially you engage Xcart, you engage Avalara, you plug in that connector, and now you're up and running. And essentially think of Avalara as a platform that you're going to mold to whatever your requirements are. So your ability to launch in days is already set up and established just by setting up the module and the connector. So let me just walk you through a couple of the ways that Avalara can help you manage your sales tax. So as I mentioned, from an Avalara perspective, not only are we going to manage all of the sales tax rates, the rules, the boundary changes that happen, but we're also be able to help you from a reporting perspective. So now that you've determined what states you need to calculate sales tax in, but we're also going to provide you the reporting functionality you need to remit your sales tax to the state, or actually have Avalara remit your sales tax for you on your behalf to the specific states that you need. So that outsourced filing solution. In any companies who deal with a lot of organizations that are exempt, the ability to help automate and collect those sales tax exemptions. Customers who have questions about where they need to collect sales tax, what states, or they need help in registering their businesses, or if they're going through an audit and they need help through that audit process. Avalara has services available depending on what those requirements are to assist you through whatever process you need. As I mentioned, whether that's a Nexus study or registration service or just help through an audit. Avalara has the professionals on staff to help assist for companies. So what I wanted to do is just kind of give you an overview of kind of the three areas that we can help and assist you with, and that is from a calculations perspective, exemption certificate perspective, and a return. So the products are called AvaTax Calc, Certs, and Returns. And depending on what your specific requirements are, these three tiers or product classes can help assist you in managing your organization's sales tax requirements. And so as I mentioned, from a calculations perspective, the ability for Avalara to validate the address against a USPS certified database, calculate the correct sales tax, apply the appropriate product taxability that you have, and any of the reporting and managing all of the sourcing rules, to the filing process, which we're able to provide you any sales tax return reports, actually the ability to file and remit your sales tax for your organizations to the state. So the great news about that is I always joke with customers that as soon as they taste the nectar of that returns process, they really see the value in that, because in reality, the sales tax process, the returns process, it doesn't get sick, it doesn't go home early. It's a process that we ensure that is done on time, in the correct format, and with the correct amount. And so it's an important process to help, especially organizations who are doing multiple states, to implement a process that is repeatable and that they can count on is going to be done on time every month or quarter or year, whenever whatever your filing schedule is. So let me just also kind of walk you through a little bit about Avalara. We have over 10,000 customers today and are growing. And I mentioned the filing process. Avalara does over 30,000 returns a month, which represents about 14 billion in sales tax filings a year. So there's a lot of companies that see the value in not only having a solution that manages all the rate, rule, and boundary changes and provides the reporting functionality, but also streamlines that filing process for them in the state or states that they require. And so also for organizations who are in multiple states, Avalara has the ability to also participate in the Streamline Sales Tax initiative, which allows companies to bring further automation to around 24 states in the United States to file and remit their sales tax. And if you may have any questions about that, I can certainly answer those about the Streamline Sales Tax Initiative, or more specifically about these processes. But that's kind of my presentation at this point. I'll turn it over to Ksenia, but if you have any questions, you can contact me directly, or as she said, is you can just send an email to alliance@xcart.com, and I can address any questions you have after the presentation.
Thank you, Clete, for your great presentation. Now I'd like to share my desktop with our guests and to demonstrate the module which is available in Xcart starting from version 4.6 out of the box. So this module has been developed in accordance with Avalara specifications and requirements. Moreover, it has been tested and certified by Avalara. But if you use an older version, you may still benefit from using the Avalara services. You just need to obtain the module from our partner, Cosmos Central. The module is available in our marketplace and is searchable by such words as Avalara or US Sales Tax or AvaTax. So this is the module in question. But now let's return to the module available in Xcart out of the box. I'm opening Xcart admin area. So we are in the admin area. Let's go to Shipping and Taxes menu, Tax System. As you can see, there are no taxes defined, but there is a sales tax banner advertising Avalara. Click here to learn more. Here you can see a Please Contact Us for a Price quote link. If you open this link and fill in the form, you will be provided with the account details. But I have already got my account, so I'm ready to proceed with the module configuration in Xcart admin area. I'm opening it now. So let's go to Settings, Modules. You can see Built-in and Installed Modules tab. Currently all the modules are shown, but there is a Filter by Tag functionality which allows you to limit the modules you see on the page. Taxes is the one we're interested in. AvaTax is the module which you can see on this page. Enable it to see Configure button. I'm pressing this button. So now you need to fill in the account number, license key, and company code. There are also several checkboxes which I'd like to comment on. So, enable tax calculation. You may configure the module now, but disable it temporarily. Note that this checkbox is responsible for AvaTax module only. Next, enable address validation. This functionality allows you to enable the use of explicit address validation. Under explicit address validation, we imply the standalone address validation, which is done independently from tax calculation. Say when the user adds his address, such as shipping address or billing address, or when he edits this address either on checkout or in the address book. If this validation fails, an error message is returned to the customer. This is an error message which he can see. Thus, he is forced to revise his address and correct it. If you disable this functionality, AvaTax module will still check the customer's address, but it will happen on checkout and the module will fail to return the rates. So the customer will see such an error message. That's why it is recommended that you enable this very functionality in advance. Next, development mode. Since I'm using a development account, this checkbox is selected. In production mode, it should be empty. Next, calculate taxes for US and Canada only. If your customers are from the US and Canada, tick this checkbox to decrease the number of requests sent to Avalara servers. There is also one more setting, calculate taxes for US in designated states only. You can limit the list of states for which the module is used. You just need to add a 2-letter states code, one per row, without any delimiter. For example, Utah, Virginia, Tennessee, New York. On the Validate Address In, you can select either United States, Canada, or both. And I'm saving the changes now. It's time to test connection. The result will be displayed in the top right corner. It is successful, so now we can place a test order. I'm signing in as a customer from Virginia Beach. It's a nice resort city, so why not to dream of being a customer from there? I'm adding the product to cart. Teddy bear is the one that I like most. Let's take a couple of bears and add them to cart. Now we're ready to proceed to checkout. The page is being refreshed, and what can we see? Virginia State Tax and Virginia City Tax are applied. I am placing the order to make sure that the taxes are applied there as well. Here we can see the order confirmation page with the taxes applied. The module works. Easy as a mouse click without any efforts from admin's side. Thanks to Avalara for their great service. Well, I have finished my presentation, and now we are ready to address your questions. Let me please remind that you should send them to alliance@x-card.com. So we have received the first question. Clete, can you hear me? I'm reading the question. Unlike the average shopping cart software, Xcart Pro enables a single installation to have multiple providers, sellers without a single Xcart installation. Can the Avalara integration solution file? I guess this is a question which should be addressed by our developer. We will return to it later. I have another question which was sent by Birgit. The question is, which states we would have to pre-collect taxes for? So, which states we would have to pre-collect taxes for? Can you answer it?
Sure. So that question goes back to where does that customer or company have nexus? And so a nexus, from a company perspective, if I have my own company and I'm located in the state of Texas, so right now the way the law states is I need to collect and file sales tax in the state of Texas. If I don't have any offices or employees or warehouses or anything in the state of outside of the state of Texas, then I don't have to collect sales tax in those states. So think of it as whatever your company footprint is, wherever you have a presence, that's the state or states that you need to collect sales tax in. So they can contact me directly and we can go into more detail, because I know some customers say, well, geez, I'm in Texas, but I have a part-time person in Florida. Does that constitute nexus? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. So there's a number of varying rules, but essentially you have to collect sales tax where you have a physical presence in the U.S., in whatever state.
Okay, thank you. And we are ready to answer the previous question about multiple accounts for providers. Actually, Enterprise Edition, or Xcart Pro, supports only one account which belongs to admin. In other words, providers or vendors have no control over Avalara accounts. Instead, admin should sign up for Avalara services and thus allow this service in his store. Now I'm going to check my email if there are any further questions. It looks like my mailbox is empty. Well, I've got my own question. When preparing the presentation, I found out that there is a recommendation. To ensure the correct choice of taxing scenario for each transaction, one should map the products from his catalog to the tax codes designed in AvaTax system. Clete, could you please comment on this very point? What happens if I don't map the products and just enable the module and leave the store as is?
Sure. So in my presentation, I kind of walk through that product taxability piece. And so essentially going back to, there's kind of two buckets. It's the way I kind of explain it is if you set up your, when you set up your website and you connect Avalara, essentially we're going to treat your products as fully taxable unless you tell us otherwise. And there's a couple ways that you as a customer can do that. So let's say if you're selling nutritional supplements on your website, what you would do is we would treat those products as taxable until you mapped your product to our product tax code that has all the research and the rules on how that product is taxed within the U.S. So a nutritional supplement can be exempt in California but fully taxable in Florida. And so those product SKUs or product tax codes that we have those rules. So you just map your product to those product tax codes and then you're done. Avalara manages and updates all of those product rules for every state in the United States. So the nice thing is you go through that mapping exercise and then you're done, and then we maintain and update those rules so you don't have to. And we can talk about as we engage whether you have a product that could potentially have varying tax codes, tax rules, or is it typically a product that's fully taxable in every single state regardless of where you sell it.
Thank you, Clete. And I've got one more question. The question is about why is the mode all the world, say for Latin America or Europe or even Russia?
I'm sorry, for some reason can you repeat that question?
The question is why are the module settings limited to the United States and Canada? Can you calculate taxes for Europe, Latin America, or even Russia?
The answer is Avalara supports the US and Canada out of the box today. We do support VAT countries, and we're working with XCard to be able to support that from a connector or a technical perspective. So the short answer is the connector doesn't currently support that from my understanding, but that can be added very quickly, just because essentially all Avalara needs is the country code to be passed to Avalara for us to calculate the sales tax. So today Avalara supports over 40 international countries, and actually I think it's even more than that today. And I can give you specifically what countries we support if you want to just reach out to me, and I'd just like to understand what countries you need support in, and I can tell you whether we support that country or not. But we support many of the European countries, Asia, South America countries today.
Okay, thank you, Clete. I cannot see any new questions, so it seems that's it for now. We have recorded this session. I'll publish it in our blog shortly. Thank you everyone for attending us today, and have a wonderful day.